best weeks of his presidency, that's going up even higher. Well, here now to discuss it more is podcast host Ben Ferguson. This truly was, Ben, in my opinion, it had to be one of the best weeks for Donald Trump. It's one of the best weeks a president has ever had on so many fronts. It's unbelievable how successful this trip and the perception of it and how much better the world is after 1 week of President Trump in the Middle East.
Yeah, all the propaganda of the media, all the propaganda over the last, 10 years, 12 years of Donald Trump is going to get us into World War III. And what is he doing? He's going to the Middle East and he's saying, I want to be a peaceful guy. I want to get along. I want to work deals. I want to have investment. I want to have linking between countries where we have common bonds economically. I want investment in the United States of America. I want to work with you. And guess what? He didn't start World War III. Instead, he's bringing back trillions of dollars of investments in the United States of America and having commonality with countries that we may be adversarial with in the past. That is a good step in the right direction. You add on what's happening with the economy. The Dow up 331 points yet again today. What were Democrats and what were the media saying? They were saying this is the president that's taking us into a recession, that he was going to not get any of the big deals done with tariffs until next year. We were going to have empty shelves. Again, this is what the media said. We were going to have empty shelves and that you weren't going to be able to find basic goods and necessities that you needed. All of it turned out yet again to be a lie. And that's why the approval rating is going back up again because of successful trips like this, where a guy's doing a great job as president.
Hey, it's quite the contrast, right? You had Joe Biden out there doing the fist bump, and that didn't quite cut it. Then you have Donald Trump, who actually comes in guns a-blazing. Not only are we stronger militarily, but we're also stronger financially and bringing home unbelievable amounts of money and jobs to the United States of America all at the same time.
Jason, you look at the pictures, and it's just an issue of respect. You look at how they respect this president. I also think part of it is they fear this president, and they understand that his word actually means something. Look at all the reporting that's happened over the last week on the cognitive decline, which we all knew was real. We all saw it years in advance with Joe Biden. They weren't afraid of him. They didn't care about what he said. They weren't afraid of taking advantage of the United States of America, whether it was on trade or tariffs or invading other countries, because they knew he was an empty suit. And so now we have respect in the world again. And that should not be political, by the way. Every American should be glad that we have an American president that's standing up for American interests first. On issues of national security, he's not someone to be screwed with. And that's why they're all wanting to make a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, look, Democrats lack a message. They lack a messenger. They're also getting to be some really old, tired people over there. It's hard to believe. So many of these long-term Democrats out there are running for re-election, but look at the ages of some of these people that are running again. It is a tired old party with no new ideas, in my opinion.
No, it is. And look, there's a big civil war happening within the Democratic Party right now. And it's the old guard, which are old school Democrats, against the new guard, which is socialists, Marxists, and communists. And you look at a guy like Bernie Sanders, for example, he's clearly trying to pass the baton on to AOC and the other radical communists and socialists that are declaring that they are that. And then you have these others that are up there on the screen right now. Look at their ages. It is incredible that they're still around. It's, by the way, one of the reasons why I'm in favor of term limits, because you have these individuals that care more about being in power than they do about the United States of America. They care more about insider trading in their stock picks and getting all this money. Nancy Pelosi's on that list than anybody else can do. Even in the best traders in the world can't keep up with Nancy Pelosi.
Exactly.
So they're not out for the people. They're out for their own interests. And I think this could be the undoing of the Democratic Party. You know this. I know this. Traditionally, midterms don't do well for whoever's in the White House. I actually believe that Donald Trump could have an incredible midterm election because of the civil war in the Democratic Party right now. And the fact he's delivering. Look at Goldman Sachs this week. They're saying the chance of recession, they've dropped them way down. So did JP Morgan Chase. This is what winning looks like, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I haven't gotten tired of winning yet. And Democrats, look, incumbents win 98% of the races. And if those old, tired Democrats in their mid to late 80s, some of them are going to run again, guess what? It's going to be a tough election for the Democrats come the midterms. Ben Ferguson, thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Line.